I think the biggest thing is just agility. There's just so much uncertainty. And so it's all about being able to respond quickly to your customers, being able to respond quickly to the market and what it's demanding.
Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce toolbox expert's perspective. Joining us today, we have Jenn Volk, who's the head of digital at H&M for the Americas. Welcome, Jenn.
Thank you. So happy to be here today.
Awesome. Well, I always like to start by learning a bit more about the person I'm interviewing's background, how you kind of progressed through your career and how you ended up at H&M. So maybe walk us through your background and how you came to be in your current position.
Absolutely. So I've been at H&M about 4 years. I started leading a team focused on product strategy and tech implementation, and then have been running the digital business for the past 2 years. I have a bit of a mix of retail and tech background as well. So I worked for Google for 4.5 years, spent some time at Sephora in their innovation lab, and then joined ThredUp, which is the largest secondhand apparel marketplace in the US, in their product management team. And that was a super fun opportunity. Got to really see that company sort of go from product market fit and go public. And I think I sort of like to say that I've let curiosity drive my career overall. I think each sort of step has been in response to, let's say, new clarity or curiosity about what I'm interested in my career. So I think from Google, at that time, I was working with a lot of SMB, small and medium business brands that were actually sort of now some of the biggest direct-to-consumer brands we talk about, whether Dollar Shave Club or Harry's, and really started seeing what the ability of building a brand online so easily was doing, not only to those brands, but also to the incumbent brands as well. And so started getting really curious about what it would be like to be at one of those incumbent brands that was being, had their business models totally shifted by these new players. So joined Sephora, really got a taste for that. Joined ThredUp to really be sort of at one of those disruptors. And I think those just taught me how much opportunity there is to be a part of a digital business at a more traditional player. There's so much opportunity to drive a new part of the business that already has so much scale and really help define the future. And that's really what led me to H&M.
Maybe talk to us a bit about what some of your plans have been, or what some of the things that you've actually released into the digital landscape on H&M's website. Obviously, we all know H&M's a dominant force, omnichannel retailer. Yeah, maybe talk to us a bit about some of your digital projects and the ones that you're most proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest one over the last year has been that we relaunched our entire site in August of 2024, which was so exciting to be a part of, because it was also sort of at the exact same time as our amazing fall collection launched. We did a huge collaboration with Charlie XCX. We had a ton of fun brand events. And so it was really all of this coming together. And I think what the site relaunch was really focused on was the ability to sort of tell our brand story through the digital experience and really elevate our product and our fashion through the digital experience as well. And I think we've done some really fun things to also leverage some of our in-person events to really create this unique omni-channel experience. So that has definitely been sort of the biggest thing I've worked on at H&M, and certainly in the last year as well.
That's awesome. What are some of the lessons kind of going through that? Was this replatforming? Was it more of a technical project, or was it more of a business where you wanted to just change the experience, therefore you had to change the underlying technology?
Yeah, a bit of a mix, some replatforming, but really focused honestly on the overall experience, new features, and I would say new or more prioritization of features that really tell the brand story and inspire the customers. I think that's what was really unique about this relaunch for me. Obviously, digital is always going to be a conversion driving channel. That goes without saying. But what we were really focused on was how we could push the limit of the digital experience and have it not only be conversion driving, but also be a place where we could tell our brand story, where we could inspire our customers. And so some of the ways we've focused on new features and some of the emphasis we've put on different parts of the site has really sort of spoken to that. Some examples, we've invested a ton in our imagery, really see that as a super important place to show our styling, our fashion editorial, but then beyond that, ensure that that imagery, when it sort of shows up on site, is also extremely shoppable, that it sort of lets customers dig deeper into the assortment, get inspired by the overall outfit, not just the product, and then dig deeper and ultimately convert. And so I think that's been a super sort of unique point of view in this overall relaunch that we've been undergoing.
That's really cool. Was there any trends that you were inspired by that kind of enabled you to then make some of these UI UX decisions when you went to actually design the website out with your team?
Yeah, I think two of the biggest things that drove some of our focus, one was just a really interesting insight we started having. And when I say it, it's one of those things where you realize that's exactly how you shop. But one thing was we started seeing, obviously, that the marketing funnel is just, it's completely tipped on its head over the last few years, especially with an emphasis on influencer marketing. And so it's not anymore that we have customers who we can predict they come in through the start page, they browse, they go to a PDP and they convert. That just is no longer the customer journey. The customer journey is all over the place. And what we were seeing was actually that a ton of traffic was landing directly on product detail pages. And so what we really started thinking about was, okay, these can no longer just be conversion driving. They really do have to tell that full brand story, because it could be that that's the first place where a brand new customer is interacting with our brand. And so what that led to was, obviously we need to balance the conversion pieces, more information about the product, what's going to get you to that next step, sizing, etc. But also, what are some unique things we could do to make this a place where we communicate who we are and we get you excited about the overall assortment as well. And so one example is, I mentioned our imagery already, but we've been testing moving imagery on product detail pages, some video as well. That's not just about sort of how the product sort of lays in the model, but is a lot more about contextualizing the product, the styling, the outfit, where are you when you're wearing this, etc. And then the other piece is really focus on recommendations and the ability to shop every single product that's in that image on a particular product detail page as well. So a lot of focus there. And then the other insight that I think really drove part of our strategy was just around how customers are experiencing us across so many different platforms. We have no control over it. We have to be on those platforms. We have to be authentic to those platforms, but they also expect quite a seamless and consistent sort of brand experience no matter where they are. So we're really responding to sort of that changing customer demand as well. And one of the places where we've put some emphasis on really leveraging this trend is on this destination on our site that we call the studio. It's really aimed at our target customer, that fashion aspirer. She loves shopping. She loves discovering new, unique product. And so we built this destination where basically we have the opportunity to brand storytell a little bit more creatively. We've been able to work with some of the influencers and top talent that we do on sort of a more social marketing level, more with live events, and really bring that into our digital experience. So for example, we work a ton with Amelia Gray. She hosted an amazing event with us in Soho in the fall. And what we did was we then did a curation by Amelia and then featured her on the studio. And as I've sort of said previously, it was sort of this blend of inspiration, curated product, but then extremely shoppable. Every single image you could click on and see every single product that she is wearing and why that she had picked that particular product. And so it's really sort of incorporating this similar sentiment of influencer marketing into our site as well. And again, trying to make that brand storytelling really consistent no matter the platform the customer is interacting with us on.
I love it. Out of curiosity, are you seeing LLMs or ChatGPT be a new way that customers are discovering your website in the first place? Is that something that you folks have thought about or looked at?
It's such a good question. I mean, certainly that is happening for sure. It's not necessarily something we're leaning into to start off with and responding to, but certainly expect to in the future.
That's awesome. And as you folks have relaunched your website, you mentioned obviously there's a bunch of different ways that people are finding you today. How have you seen, whether through your analytics, how your customers actually are behaving or how their behavior has changed since the relaunch?
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting things has been sort of the incorporation of our omnichannel strategy in this overall relaunch. And so, as I mentioned, the relaunch was sort of part of our fall collection, our collaboration with Charlie XCX, a bunch of events globally really highlighting our collection, etc. And so I think what's been really interesting is sort of doing all of this and having this huge focus at the same time has led us to see where we can push our omnichannel customer experience so that it's now we're not just focusing on it as sort of the backbone and convenience features. It's very much how do we utilize all of our channels to create the best customer experience overall. And so the analytics that we've seen is really sort of how much we can drive that omnichannel customer by engaging in all of these different elements sort of at the same time, but then also bringing different parts of the experience together. So I mentioned the studio previously, just as an example of how we sort of tied our omnichannel experience together. We had an amazing event at London Fashion Week where Charlie XCX effectively threw a big concert with a ton of H&M customers and colleagues and influencers we work with. And what we were able to do was actually, at the end of that event, upload photos from the event and then tag each of the photos with the product the influencers, the customers, the colleagues Charlie was wearing, and really sort of be able to let customers who weren't able to go to Charlie's effective concert in London actually experience the event, but then also almost like shop the event. And so it's really leaning into those types of examples and experiences that we've seen the impact, obviously, on growth of our omnichannel customers and really amplifying the halo effect of these in-person events in our online selling and traffic, et cetera.
Amazing. And you mentioned omnichannel. Obviously, H&M has a huge footprint. Outside of what you just mentioned, what are kind of some of the ways that you actually leverage the existing assets and collaborate with effectively the in-store team to drive more overall engagement and conversion where you don't end up in like an attribution war, which we've chatted about with a lot of guests before? What's your approach at looking at that?
We definitely have, I think, overall just a mindset of an omni-channel customer is the customer we're going after. And so I think that's a really good thing, is just ensuring internally that there isn't this sort of attribution fight, that it really is the best interest of the entire business that customers shop, no matter where we are. So I think that's one thing we've actually been quite deliberate about as an organization. Another, outside of sort of leveraging these in-person events to not only drive sort of store traffic, but also digital, is just around our loyalty program. We've been really focused on how we can create unique experiences for some of our most loyal customers in store and also give them perks online as well. And so it's really sort of trying to tailor that membership program to be much more about experience across all of the channels. And maybe we have the ability to target someone who's just interacting with us in store with a unique early access online, and vice versa if someone's just interacting with us online, to help really drive that omni-channel behavior. And I think the other piece, and again, it's a little bit organizational, is we've taken sort of a new perspective on some of our in-person activations where we don't only just measure the success of them as traffic, audience at the actual event, brand awareness, PR, etc. It also is really about incorporating how it impacted the digital business at that same time in that same location. And so we've been really focused on sort of incorporating that into our overall measurement. And I think what that does is, again, it really instills that mindset of sort of this omni-channel customer and this omni-channel business is better for all channels overall. That it also helps us sort of make particular decisions when we are creating a digital experience or physical experience to consider the other channel more inherently when it's sort of part of the overall success metric that we're looking at. So I think those are some of the ways that we've really tried to push the omni-channel business.
I talk a lot about this on the podcast. Consumer demands and expectations are an all-time high. Obviously, Amazon's done a really good or bad job at setting those expectations. Depends on which side of the fence you're on. What are some of the most surprising customer demands that you've seen that you've had to adjust for?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones I've sort of mentioned is this expectation that a customer can interact with a brand in a very consistent way, no matter the platform they're on. And when I say interact with the brand, it's really not only the brand story, but it's also conversion. They really have this high expectation of authenticity of a brand, getting to know a brand, and then also if I want to buy this in 1 minute, I can. And so that's what's driven a ton of our decisions, like I've mentioned on the digital experience, where we have a very high expectation that no matter where you are in the site, you should be both inspired and you should be able to convert very easily. And I think that leads us to actually very different feature prioritization because we have to strike that balance. And like I mentioned, that's really dictated a lot of our overall relaunch strategy, our overall relaunch features as well. And the same is true for store. It's also making sure that when a customer comes in, it's so inherent to the store that you can see and touch and feel the garments and you're naturally inspired by that. And then it's also making sure that there's a really seamless experience, whether that's purchasing in the store or whether that's buying online and picking up in store, returning in store, making sure that that is also sort of an elevated experience as well.
Amazing. Jenn, let's say I was on your team. What would be the one metric that I would say that you're always prioritizing and always in everyone's ear about when it comes to evaluating success digitally?
Yep. Right now, we are really focused on, I would say, the ROI of our marketing spend. And a lot of it is because of this sort of flip of the marketing funnel that I've been talking about. We have to make sure that no matter the channel, we understand what the customer journey is like when they actually land on the site or the app, and that we're maximizing the conversion of that journey. And so I would say that is our really, really big focus for 2025 is, again, really understanding those customer journeys because they are so varied and we lack control over them so much more now than we did previously. And then how do we make sure we're really driving them to become a customer and come back to us in the long run as well?
Love it. And as we like to wrap up, Jenn, maybe talk to us a bit about, in a sentence or two, how do you foresee 2025 playing out from a digital standpoint? It's interesting you say that you're investing in a lot more in-person ads. That's kind of something that I've seen with our client base and even within our own business. But yeah, I'm curious if there's anything else that kind of comes top of mind with that question.
I think the biggest thing is just agility. And that's sort of always true. But right now, I think we're just seeing in the retail industry, in the world overall, there's just so much uncertainty. And so it's all about being able to respond quickly to your customers, being able to respond quickly to the market and what it's demanding. And there's also just so much rapid innovation. I mean, it's not just uncertainty sort of in the world right now, it's also how much has changed and how much the conversation has changed with the investment in AI that has occurred over the last, let's call it 2 years. All of these conversations, I think things are just rapidly changing at a rate that we have never seen before. And so I think the most important thing is agility.
Amazing. Love it. Well, Jenn, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.